When Emily laughed that night, something inside me cracked in a way that couldn't be mended. We were still at the dining table, dishes and scraps of dinner scattered between us. I had just finished telling her I was done arguing, that I wouldn't raise my voice anymore or keep chasing after her approval. She leaned back in her chair, lips curling into a smirk sharper than any insult. "I've finally broken you," she said, her voice dripping with triumph. "Took me long enough, but now you know your place." The words hit like ice water poured straight into my chest. Broken? Was I her husband or some wild animal she thought needed taming? I stared at her, searching for the woman I once married in the stranger smirking across from me. Emily used to be tender, kind, the sort of person who made me believe in partnership. But somewhere along the way, love had been replaced with control, and humiliation had become her weapon. I forced down the bitterness rising in my throat. "So that's what this marriage is to you? A game you win by breaking me?" She laughed again, louder this time, as though my words only proved her right. "Don't be dramatic, Michael. Men always fight at first. But eventually, they learn. And you finally learned." Her voice echoed in my head long after she left the table. That night, while she slept peacefully beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying every argument, every dismissal, every mocking smile. It wasn't just what she said, it was the truth behind it. She no longer saw me as her partner. To her, I was just a conquest. And right then, I knew something had to change. Not later. Now. The next morning, before Emily even stirred, I reached for the envelope I had hidden away for weeks. Inside were the divorce papers, signed, dated, final. A decision I had been too afraid to act on, already sealed in ink. The weight of them was heavier than it should have been, carrying years of swallowed pride, quiet tears, and nights spent wondering where our love had gone. I slipped them into my briefcase before heading to work, rehearsing the words I'd speak when I finally handed them over. For the first time in months, my chest felt lighter, not joyful, but free. All day, I kept seeing that smirk in my mind, the way she spoke as if I were nothing more than a project she had completed. That image alone steeled my resolve. I had spent years trying to repair what was broken, reasoning, compromising, fighting for something she had already turned into a battlefield. But no more. When I came home that evening, Emily was lounging in the living room, scrolling through her phone, the same superiority she wore the night before plastered across her face. She barely looked up. "You're late," she muttered, as though I owed her an explanation. I set my briefcase down and sat across from her. My heart pounded, but my voice was calm. "Emily, I've made my decision." At last she glanced at me, one eyebrow raised. "Decision about what? Dinner?" Her tone was sharp, mocking. I opened my briefcase and slid the envelope across the table. She blinked at it, confused at first, then curious. When she unfolded the papers and saw my signature at the bottom, her smirk slipped. "What is this?" she asked, her voice suddenly hard. "Divorce," I said evenly. "You wanted control. You wanted to break me until nothing was left. But I won't live like that. I'm not your conquest. I was your husband. At least, I was supposed to be. Since this is just a game to you, I'm done playing." Her hands trembled as she held the papers, though she tried to hide it with a scoff. "You're bluffing. You'd never leave me." But the fear flickering in her eyes told me she knew I wasn't bluffing at all. The room filled with the sound of paper rustling in her hands. For the first time, I watched her armor begin to crack. That arrogance, that shield she had worn for years, gave way to something I had never seen in her before, uncertainty. "You can't be serious," she whispered, her voice shaking. "After everything we've built, you're just throwing it away?" I leaned back, exhausted but unshaken. "Emily, I didn't throw anything away." "You did. Every insult. Every time you mocked me. Every time you turned our marriage into a contest. You think you've broken me, but all you've done is push me past my limit." Her eyes flashed with anger, but beneath it was something else. Desperation. "So that's it? You're walking out." I nodded slowly. For once, I'm choosing peace. I'm choosing myself. The silence that followed was suffocating. Emily opened her mouth, ready to unleash her usual sharp words. But nothing came. Instead, she stared at the papers like they were a mirror reflecting a life where her games no longer worked. I stood, grabbed my coat, and moved toward the door. The papers are signed. You can fight them if you want, but it won't change the truth. This marriage ended the moment winning became more important to you than loving. Michael, wait, she called after me, her voice breaking. For the first time, it wasn't commanding or mocking. It was pleading, but I didn't turn back. I couldn't. If I did, I'd see the woman I once loved instead of the one who laughed at my pain. The night air hit me as I stepped outside. Cool, cleansing, I drew in a long breath, feeling the weight slide from my shoulders. Emily had wanted victory, but in the end, real freedom belonged to me. And with every step I took away from that house, her laughter grew smaller until all that remained was silence and the promise of a life that was finally mine.